If you're looking for freeze-dried emergency food for your home, check out Ready Hour. What's happening, Panda Nation? Peter Von Panda here. I picked up some food by Ready Hour. You can go to their website. I bought it directly from them at readyhour.com. Listen, it's always good to have some freeze-dried food, some emergency food. Whether you are just stockpiling for that snowstorm, or maybe you're going to be hit by a hurricane, or maybe there are fires in your area, there are a lot of reasons that you should have a queue of food to keep yourself fed and happy while things are going on around you, including food shortages and all that. So I picked this up because, one, it wasn't that expensive. And so I actually think you get a lot of food here for not a lot of money, you know, especially when compared to other freeze-dried food. This seemed, based on the per serving cost, to be one of the most affordable ones. And I'm hoping, and we will test it out to see how good this food is. Now, for example here, I want to just grab this long grain white rice, and what I want to show you here is it says 10 servings in this container, and it's pretty heavy, right? And rice is pretty heavy. It's kind of freeze-dried as it is sent to you. But this one right here, chili mac, this says it's 8 servings, and this bag is pretty full. Now, if I'd gotten chili mac by Mountain House, I would have actually expected a package about the same size, but to be really honest, and it's a little hard to tell here, that this 15-ounce package is really full. In the Mountain House ones, I'm just kind of used to it being very light and maybe only half full, and that's because what you do is you open it up and you add the water and you use the bag really as a serving container, and even though it might have 2 servings, it's really appropriate for about 1 person after a long day's work. So I can add my water to this, cook it on my own, eat it myself. I don't usually want to split it, but that's just me. But this, I think, is meant to serve more than 1 person. And one of the reasons that I think that is because you don't actually make the food in this particular bag. What you do here is you actually, on almost all of these, you will empty this into basically a boiling pot of water and stir it in and kind of cook it. So you're going to have to prep it over a fire or a stove, as opposed to some of the other freeze-dried foods which are meant to be prepped in their own packaging, right? So I am going to try this spaghetti today because I am really curious about checking out how good it is, especially because I'm familiar with some of the other freeze-dried spaghettis, and I want to see if it's really easy to make and if it's really good and how much we make. And what it says here is we're going to open the pouch and remove the oxygen absorber. Then we are going to whisk the contents into 7 cups of water. That's a pretty big indication to me that we're going to make a decent quantity of this. Bring it to boil, and then we are going to reduce the heat and continue cooking for 15 to 20 minutes, and then remove from heat and let stand for 5 to 6 minutes. So it's not as quick and easy of a process as like 6 or 7 or 8 minutes with the Mountain House package, but I think this is going to be much better if you have multiple mouths to feed. Let's try it out. I have 7 cups of water per the instructions here over heat, and so I'm just going to tear open the pouch here, and as you can see, we do have a little Ziploc type of top at the top, so if you need to reseal this for some reason, you can certainly do that. As I open this up, the oxygen absorber is right here at the top, so we're going to pull that out, and you can see what we have in there. It's actually the spaghetti. So unlike some of the other freeze-dried food that I have tried before, where the spaghetti is chopped up and then it's covered in like a freeze-dried red sauce, doesn't look like that is the case here. It looks like it is just mostly the noodles. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those out. Oh, there is the red sauce. So they're just not mixed together much. That's pretty awesome. All right. So I think everything we need is right there. Now I will say, as I go ahead and stir this up, what I want you to see there is we have lots of spices up in here, and I can smell them. I will tell you that I'm kind of hit with the smell of, I think, maybe basil and oregano. So that's kind of interesting to me, because a lot of times this emergency type of food is, I'd say good enough to make you feel good when you're hungry. But this has the aroma of something homemade. So what I have to do here is whisk this all together, or at least that's what it says to do, and then bring this up to a boil. All right, the spaghetti is just reaching a boil here, so I'm going to let it start bubbling up. I will say a couple things. I should have used a bigger pot. This is a pot that works well for a single Kraft macaroni and cheese, and that tends to not boil over here, but I've already got it pretty close to the top, so I'm stirring it pretty aggressively to make sure that it doesn't boil over. So if you're doing this outdoors, in the field, at home, I would go with a fairly large size pot because 7 cups of water is a lot. Now, I'm actually a little worried here because what I've noticed here is that the noodles are starting to look a little soft, which is good. But man, I have just a ton of water. So I don't know if this is going to reduce down, or basically you're just going to fish a lot of the spaghetti out and serve it. Now, I'm going to move the heat down here to medium per the instructions. And now we have to give this 15-20 minutes. And like I said, I'm not sure how much of this will boil off, but I really don't think that much. So I think I'm going to be doing a little fishing here, and I don't know. I feel like the amount of water is overdoing it. Well, follow the instructions. Okay, the 20 minutes is up here, and even though I have it down on simmer, it continues to boil. What I will say is that probably about a half an inch of liquid has boiled off. So you do have to stir it pretty often because otherwise it'll stick at the bottom. But I want to show you here at the 20-minute mark what we have, and kind of looks like a can of SpaghettiOs. We have lots of very soft noodles. They're not that big. I would call them more like angel hair. But the sauce, even though it was totally soupy before, is definitely reduced down. So right at the moment, I would say this is something that would be poured into a bowl and you would eat with a fork and a spoon so that you'd get all of this delicious creamy sauce, but yet get these filling noodles. But that's not the end of it. We've got to wait 5 more minutes here for it to cool off now that I have turned off the heat, and then we will check it out and try it. 5 minutes are up, and it's looking pretty good, and it's definitely thicker than I thought. I tell you what, I don't know, maybe the 7 cups is a key amount, but I might even go a little thinner on it. But you know what? Do as you please, and if you are a rule follower, I think you'll probably like that. So, standard size dinner plate, there's only so much I can do because it is pretty runny, but I want to show you that this pot is still filled. So I would say that this is probably okay for 3-4 adults, to be honest, in terms of food. And if it's the only course you're going to have, it's one thing to consider. But maybe have the ability to have something on the side, like some bread or salads or whatever. But in terms of a single person serving, this is not bad. So let's taste it. Mealtime here, and I will say it does smell good. It smells like spaghetti and seems to be sticky enough to stay on my fork like this. Still pretty hot. I tell you what, boiling it that long definitely makes the noodles kind of mushy. There's no doubt about that. You know, if you like your noodles al dente, then you definitely don't want to boil it or let it simmer as long as I did. And I think if you're outside in the cold, it's just going to be harder to maintain that water temperature, so it just might not cook it as thoroughly as if you were doing it on a stove. So depending on your conditions, it might come out a little more al dente anyway, but I don't mind soft noodles at all. I like them. And I will say that I love that the sauce has the spice in it. A lot of survival emergency camping food tends to be a little bland, but this definitely has like that pepper, basil, oregano kick. So I love the fact that they did a nice job of actually putting in real spices into this, and it just kind of elevates it to another level where it's not just thrown together, it's really intentional. So I tell you what, if you're trying to stock up with food that's shelf stable, that will last a long time, that you can grab and go if you need to leave, that is going to be easy to make, and obviously easy and lightweight to pack, and you need to feed a bunch of mouths, and yet you still want a good dining experience, check out Ready Hour. I'm really impressed with this. I'll be trying more in the future, but I will put a link to Ready Hour in the description below, as well as some of the other freeze-dried food that I really love. Peter Von Panda, out.